Hello. No problem. Thank you.
Okay, good to go, right? All right. Akhil, all set? Akhil, all set? Can we begin?
Yep, all there, all done.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. The beautiful thing about a bow and arrow is that when you push the arrow behind, it moves forward with full velocity. And that's the lesson about life. When life pushes you back with difficulties, it means it's giving you a surge. And when you move with full force, it's going to give you a surge forward and you're going to go much higher than target. Good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to HSNC Board and RD National College presents, along with in association with the Shahani Group, presents Calling the Curious, Placement Opportunities During COVID Times with Dr. Akhil Shahani, MD, Shahani Group. I'd like to begin today's webinar with a very interesting case study that I often share with my students. And that's the case study of the country Japan. If all my students who are on YouTube live with us can just imagine what's the size of Japan. Japan is 1/4 the size of Maharashtra. And Maharashtra in India is only one state. Nothing grows in Japan. There is no agricultural resources like India. It's not oil rich like the Gulf. It's not even iron and steel rich like Europe. Nothing grows in Japan. In fact, Japan faced the worst two nuclear holocausts in the history of the world with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 3 generations suffered the effects of those nuclear gases. Pregnant women gave birth to handicapped and maimed children. They in turn gave birth to handicapped and maimed children. In spite of all these drawbacks, today Japan is the #2 country in the world, neck to neck with USA. So much so that everywhere in the world, it's either the US products or the Japanese products. In fact, I read a few days ago that Sony Entertainment has put in a bid to take over the biggest 2 Hollywood production houses, that's Warner Brothers and Paramount Pictures. What then makes Japan such a successful country? It's never got asked for any tariff relief. It's never asked for any reductions. Japan has succeeded only because of one industry, and that is the electronics industry. And as you know, electronics does not grow on trees. My kids would love it if the iPhones were growing on trees and their iPads would be coming out of the soil. But electronics is a result of the human brain. And that's the secret. Japan has always worked hard. They have such good work ethics. In Japan, if a train is supposed to arrive at 9:03 and if it arrives at 9:05, the passengers are refunded their ticket money. According to Japanese people, 100% means 100%. They don't know the meaning of the word scrap, delay, wastage. They are so thick about their quality. They have such good work ethics. They are so obsessed with work comes first, and that's the reason it's the #2 country in the world. But interestingly, there are 2-3 interesting facts which I can't resist sharing with you all. One is that they're so thick with their culture. They trade with every country in the world. Japanese products are available all over the world, but they never speak English or any other language. They only speak Japanese. They never say hi or hello the American way or the British way. They only bow down in the Japanese way. They only eat sushi. They don't eat pizza or burger. That's how thick they are with their culture. In fact, I read somewhere that Japan now has the highest suicide rate in the world. It was US 1, Britain 2, and Japan 3, but it's taken over. And suicide at 2 ages. One at the age of 13. What happens at the age of 13? A boy or girl, a student, selects the field that they want to. Like here we have SSC at 15, a boy or girl, a student selects what stream they want to go to. There they finish the high school at 13 and they decide what they have to do. So if a boy or girl does not get the field of his choice, as in if he wanted computer engineering and is forced to take chemical engineering, he'd rather end his life than doing something that is not his first choice. And the second age is the age of 60. What's the age of 60? At the age of retirement. Japanese people would, if you tell a Japanese employee, thank you, bye-bye, you're done with your work life, go home and rest, they go home and shoot themselves in the head because they can't imagine a life without work. That's their work ethic. Of course, that's another extreme. And in India, we are another extreme, but it's only work culture, it's only work ethic, and that's how a country comes up. Incidentally, another fact is Japan has one of the highest divorce rates in the world because Japanese office look like five-star hotels. They work all day, they take their food, they work till 2 o'clock, rest for 3 hours, they have a gym, they have a sauna, and they have a swimming pool. They don't go home for 15, 20 days. So you can imagine if a couple doesn't see each other for 15, 20 days, the marriage is not going to last. Tokyo City has a zero birth rate. Nobody has time to have babies, which is alarming the Japanese government because everybody is so work obsessive because somebody has to stay at home for 2-3 years to take care of the baby, and neither the mother, the father, the grandfather, the grandmother, nobody is ready because it's not about pay, double pay, 3 times pay maternity leave, 4 times pay paternity leave, but you will lose out on your promotion and your growth if you stay at home for 2 years. So Japanese have that kind of obsession, and that's something that Indians really need to learn. Here we have the largest number of public holidays in the world, 10 days Ganpati, 9 days Navratri. Government offices work like a retirement. We have the highest number of voluntary retirements in the world. This is something, the culture of work, really we need to know. Just before I give the formal welcome, I just want to tell you another interesting thing about Japanese. They are so quality obsessed that American IBM ordered a spare part from a Japanese firm, and the order in international must show whatever is the scrap factor at which can be rejected. So the order said 10,000 units of the spare part. AQL, acceptable quality levels, 3 defective spare parts, and then the order will be accepted. When the Japanese EDP delivered the order to the Americans, it was one big box and small box, and it came with a letter from the EDP manager who said, we Japanese can never understand the Americans. You said 10,000 spare parts, which we have made. But AQL, acceptable quality levels, 3 defective spare parts, you didn't tell us which defects to create in the spare parts. So we hired 2 engineers. They tried their best to create defects. So this is your order, 10,000 perfect pieces. And in a separate box, we have wrapped 3 defective spare parts. Next time, please state what defects you want us to create in the spare part. And the Americans laugh their head off. But that's what the Japanese is. When they say 100%, they mean 100%. And that's why when we buy a Japanese product, we're so sure 100% customer satisfaction. And that's what Lee Iacocca always talks about, satisfy the customer. He's going to bound to come back. In fact, this is a concept which has come from our scriptures, from the Mahabharata. And Arjuna was the best archer because Guru Dronacharya told him, when you look at your target, only focus on the target. Don't see the birds, the sky, and anything around you. And that's, if you have that much focus, the focus that a mother has to bring up a child, you will see that your customer is going to come back to you because you're satisfied his every need. So with this case study, I'd like to begin today's program by welcoming Provost HSNC University, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, who's joined us today as an esteemed panelist. I'd like to welcome our chief guest for today, Dr. Akhil Shahani, MD Shahani Group, who's very accomplished with armed with an engineering degree and a finance degree, and of course came back to India to give back to education, has got a conglomerate of educational institutions, and is partnered with us successfully for so many conclaves and so many tie-ups. And today he brings a very, very interesting opportunity for our students, particularly during these COVID times, offering placements to our students. So thank you very much, Dr. Akhil, for joining us today. And of course, I have on my team, Vice Principal, Professor Dinesh Singhani, my technical coordinator and examination convener, Professor Vipul Saluja, and I believe we have Abdullah Manihar from the Shahani Group. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And we are just going to be, before we go on to seeing a little small video, I just want to end with a very nice quote which I read this morning. It's the same boiling water which boils a potato and softens it, and it hardens the egg. So it's not the circumstances, but it's how resilient you are that you become. So thank you for joining us today, everybody. And this webinar is going on to all our HSNC board colleges. All my students of second year and third year have joined in today. We've canceled the lectures for today for this very pertinent webinar. And thank you for joining us. And now I'd request my technical team, there's a small video that has been played today about the new normal, how our academic term looks like, and what are the activities that this new term is bringing in. Okay, over to you, Vipul, for the video. Thank you.
सांसें मेरी अब बेफिक्र हैं, दिल में बस कैसे ये पल हैं, बातें संभल जा रही हैं, पलकों में यूं ही हंसी है, मन में छुपी कैसी ये धुन है, और ख्वाहिशें उलझी किधर हैं, पैरों से जख्मी ज़मीं है, नजरें भी ठहरी हुई हैं, हर घड़ी हम हैं चले राह ये मंजिलें हमसे खफा थी, इन पर छाइयों सी बेवफा थी, बाहों में अब खोई है रातें, हाथों में खुली है ये शामें, ये सुबह है नहीं, हम हैं चले राह यही।
Thank you so much, Vipul. I just got a message from the president of the HSNC board, Shri Kishu Mansukhani. He's unable to join us today, but he has sent his good wishes and he has wished a good partnership with the HSNC board, RD National College and the Shahani Group. And he has conveyed his best wishes to all the students who are watching us today and are going to join this program. All the best for their journey ahead. And now I would like to do the most favorite job of mine, and that is introduce our provost, HSNC University, and trustee, HSNC board, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani. I need an entire 1 hour to talk about all his achievements, but my favorite line about him is always that there are many people in the world who create history, but he creates geography. And now that he has ventured full throttle into the foray of education as provost, he has got so involved that I feel that all the knowledge that we have for so many years is absolutely minuscule compared to the one that vignettes that he gives us in the morning. And there is so much enthusiasm in him to learn and grow and involve. So it's hats off to you, sir, for all your involvement and being so approachable and so human. And over to you, sir, for your keynote address. Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani.
Thank you, Principal Neha Jagtiani. It's always a pleasure, and your very kind introduction of me is always overwhelming. Thank you so much for all that. But I must tell you that I'm equally a learner from you as I could be as the provost of the university. So it's a two-way traffic between us that we learn from each other. Mr. Akhil Shahani, wonderful person, wonderful human being, educationist. We have great association for many, many years. And I think we are very fortunate today that you are here in this partnership to guide our students and make them into a different, bring them and show them a different world. Today, I wanted to share with you, as your principal has correctly said, about what happens in different countries of the world. And she explained to you all the work ethic of what Japan is. But let's come down to India and let's say, what is it? In the last couple of years, the last decade as such, what is it that has really grown so well? The whole world over, people look at IT industry as an industry where we would really excel. But IT comprises of a large amount of gamut. IT includes our talk on the VC today. So that's an opportunity really. The other part of it is how do we really get jobs in different fields of activity? And these jobs in different fields of activity in India is such a great opportunity which has happened in the last couple of years. But the story is very sad on the other hand. If you look at things and look at statistics that we have in India, we have such a high rate of unemployment. Not only that, we have a high rate of unemployment even for the educated people. And that is a very big gap which we have. And that is what Dr. Neha Jagtiani, Dr. Akhil Shahani, and the rest of the team have got together today to show you some of the opportunities so that even after you are graduated, even after you have qualified, even after you have learned, there is a bridge, there is a gap between what you have learned, what is the qualification you have, and actually the underlying job that you will possibly get. Same thing happens in my construction industry. We find that on one side, there are so many unemployed people in India. And on the other hand, when I want workers, I was looking at more than 1,000 construction workers of different kinds. But I'm not even talking about the migrant issue. Even before that, for the last 2 years, when we were looking for construction workers, we couldn't get carpenters, we couldn't get fitters, we couldn't get painters, we couldn't get so many masons of different kinds. And on the other hand, so many people unemployed. So we found that we really had to get into the skilling part of the business and industry in order to see that the skill sets or the gap between those people who want jobs and actually having the requirements of jobs in industry should be fulfilled. So today we have Mr. Akhil Sahni sharing with you this different parts of gaps which he is bringing to the table, and gives you an idea and opportunity what the BFSI segment is actually going to give you. So what are the jobs available? How do we fulfill the jobs? What are the type of qualifications that we have? And that's why we're very grateful to him and Dr. Neha Jagtiani for actually holding this webinar in order to bring us together in order to achieve this objective. But my young students, let me share with you one or two things more. When we are working in college, when we are studying in college, it's not only sufficient to do your qualification or the degree that you are doing. Today, through the webinars, through courses, online courses, we can pick up a large number of skill sets. Some of them are organized by your college, some are organized by our board, our university, and some are even done by outside agencies. It is my suggestion, strong suggestion, that during these COVID times, you do have a little time when you can get bored. Some of it, of course, you must enjoy yourself, watch movies, go into Netflix and do all that. But a little spare time to really get into some of the skill sets, you could actually go and learn different subjects and different skills, online courses, offline courses, whatever is possible to do now. And it will hold you in great stead when you go into the outside world. Whether you go into the outside world as an entrepreneur, or you go as a professional, or you go in as an employee, it doesn't matter. All your professional gaps which are there in terms of skill sets, you're going to learn. So I want to wish you, each and every one of you, the very, very best in National College, in all the other college students who are studying here today in our boards, colleges. Very happy that you are joined here today and picking up some of the ideas which we are bringing to the table. RTS, congratulations. All the best wishes during this difficult time. Remember, keep your mask on, keep social distancing. I know you want to go and play more with your friends, but we got to beat this virus completely. And especially your parents and your grandparents, take more care of them, because the mortality rate for them is so much higher that it is dangerous. So don't bring those COVID cases back home, and take care of each and every one of them. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful innings in your colleges, university, and then of course your life. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you so much, sir, for those very, very enlightening words. And I'm sure my students are going to take away about the IT industry. And once again, a heartiest congratulations from RD National College and the HSNC board for being elected as on the panel, advisory panel for the National Education Policy. They know that this government wants to do something right, and that's why they have put you on the panel. So it's right from the policymaker, right to the student, the stakeholder. Today's webinar is very interesting. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. I know you have a very pressing schedule with meetings and internal meetings and being on so many panels, but we really acknowledge and appreciate that you always take the time to talk to students who are at your heart, and you make yourself available to give them some time. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And I now move on to our chief guest and our our chief guest who is going to address the webinar. That's Dr. Akhil Sahni. Akhil Sahni wears many hats. And I think one of the most interesting things that I remember about him is when I first heard him, he said something very interesting. He said, Thadomal Sahni Engineering College. How many people know how Thadomal Sahni looks? And all the young students said, no, we've never seen his picture. So he said, that's the important part. Nobody has seen his picture, how he looks, but it's the college and what he did, which people remember, and his memory lives on. So that was my first memory of his public speaking. and he wears many hats apart from being an entrepreneur, successful entrepreneur, and educationist. It runs in his blood that he is a philanthropist doing a lot for social causes. So welcome aboard, Dr. Akhil Shahani. Thank you for your association, Shahani Group, with RD National College. And I'm sure my students are very blessed that you come forth with placements during COVID times. Over to you, Dr. Akhil.
Thank you very much, Principal Jagtiani. I'm actually reminded of the time around almost 30, 35 years ago when I was actually in the same position as most of the students on this webinar, where I was actually in the final year of my bachelor's degree. And the one thing on my mind was, okay, exams and all are great and classes are great, but my big problem is how do I get a successful job or a career that will make, frankly, my parents proud and my friends jealous? Two things. Sometimes friends jealous and parents proud could be flipped over, but ultimately it has to be something that really shows people that I am out there and I'm successful. I'm going to talk to you. How would you like, all of you on this webinar, to have the sort of job that could earn you a crore salary per year before the age of 30? Let me repeat that. A crore salary per year before the age of 30. That means that almost 10 lakhs a month income. Imagine, what would you spend 10 lakhs a month on? I mean, if you had that sort of job, right? But before, and I can see, even though I can't see you all, like I can imagine all your eyes gleaming and a big smile and say, wow, wouldn't it be great to get that sort of salary and that sort of successful career? I'm sure my family would be proud. And my friends, of course, would be really very, very jealous. But before I get into that golden horizon, let me talk about the reality here today, right? The thing is, let's understand one thing. And like Dr. Hirandani said, is that this is not a great time to be looking for a job. I mean, we all know about, all of you, I hope you're reading the newspapers, but more likely reading all the rumors on WhatsApp, which frankly, you should dissuade half of it. But the point is that the job market is tight. Let's be realistic. We know for a fact that restaurants are closed, hotels are closing, travel is gone. So basically jobs in the hospitality industry, the travel industry have gone. Logistics, the jobs that they're giving are more like, let's say if you're an Amazon delivery guy, or let's say a Zomato delivery guy, then that job's available. But I don't think that's the sort of job that you want. Majority of industries, if you are a non-techie, have sort of close to you, majority. If you are a techie, let's say if you're a great programmer, if you're great, then of course there's huge amount of money and great salaries in the startup industry, like a lot of companies like your, which are starting, like all your Byju's and all, which have got paying huge amount of money, but they're paying for programmers and people who can actually create technical products. I'm assuming that the majority of people listening to this webinar may not necessarily be techies. You're more classic BCom, BBA, BA, non-techie students. But of course, you have ambition and the drive to succeed, right? So let me talk about the one industry, even in spite of COVID, which is hiring people at a fantastic rate. And it is one of the fastest growing industries in India. And that industry is the banking, financial services, and insurance sector, the BFSI sector. Salaries of 1 crore for young people is actually not unheard of. If people are really, you can actually move up to vice president level if you're very talented very quickly in a top multinational bank and get those salaries very quickly. However, before we get into the deep dive of what that means, let me first explain to you what the BFSI industry is, because I'm sure you've heard of it, but you probably are not really aware of the vast scale of what is all involved, right? So when you think of the banking, financial services, and insurance industry, the most common thing that you're familiar with are probably banks. Like probably you've gone with your parents to HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, deposited money in your account, taken money out. You may have a credit card or debit card from that bank, and that is your major exposure to the banking industry. However, let's explain what the banking business is all about. Banks basically take your money, they'll put it in a savings account. They will give you maybe today like 5% interest on your money. For every 100 rupees you put in, you get 5 rupees back. But the bank doesn't sit and just keep on giving you money. They take the same 100 rupees and then go to a business, and the business says, look, I want to borrow money to grow my business, to pay my salaries and to spend on marketing. And the bank says, good, the money that my customer has paid me, the 100 rupees, I'm going to lend to you for 112 rupees. That means the bank is earning 112 rupees and giving you 5 rupees of that, 105 rupees. So that means, sorry, not even 105 rupees, 100 rupees is still lying with the bank. The bank is taking 12 rupees every year and giving you 5 rupees and earning a nice 7%, 7 rupees every year on the money that you've given them, right? Great business. And that is how the majority of banks work. Take your money, deposit it, and lend it out to companies. And that is the banking business has worked the same way for the last 100, 150 years. Not much change in that. Now, that is the basis of how the banking industry started, and it's always been like that till the last 20 years. Let's talk about what's happened since then. The industry has exploded since then. There's a new range of companies called non-banking finance companies, right? The NBFCs. The difference between an NBFC and a bank is that an NBFC cannot take your bank deposit and make you put up money in a savings account. An NBFC can't take that money from you. But an NBFC has to do business. So all they do is basically they go to banks themselves, or they go to, let's say, venture capital funds, or let's say investors, and say, look, I will take money from you. I will borrow money from you at maybe 10, 12%. And then I will go to companies which are higher risk that maybe banks may not want to fund and charge them a loan of, let's say, 16, 17%. That means that the NBFC can't take your money because that's the cheapest cost of money. They will borrow money from other banks and say, look, I will pay 12 rupees to the bank every year, but I will earn 17 rupees from the company I'm lending to. So I earn 5%, 5 rupees every year. So I'm making my money there. The NBFC market, frankly, the NBFC group has actually exploded in India because it's much easier to set up an NBFC than a bank. So a lot of people have gone into the non-banking financial services business, right? That is the NBFC business. Let's talk about the third part of the BFSI industry, insurance. Now, insurance, you always think of some old uncle who's an LIC agent who's trying to sell you life insurance. They say, like, if somebody passes in your family, you get a lump sum. Today, the insurance industry is huge. You can actually buy insurance that says that, okay, if I face a business loss in the next year, the insurance company will pay me money for it to cover my loss, but I will pay a small amount of premium to that insurance company to get the return. You can insure anything. You can insure things like the likelihood of your business catching fire. You can likelihood of, let's say, if you crash your car, somebody will insure, they will insure the cost of the car. It actually helps with health insurance as well, like in terms of if anyone in your family falls sick, it'll help you. What a lot of people don't realize is that how the fact that insurance exists allows the economy to grow. Why is that? Imagine, let's say, if you were concerned that, let's say, your grandparent may fall sick. Let's say, for example, they get a heart problem. Now, either you say, look, in anticipation of the heart problem and maybe the 10, 15 lakhs I have to pay to the hospital, you say that, look, I will keep that 10, 15 lakhs in my account and I'll make sure that I'm not able to spend it. But then you can't use that for anything else. You can't invest in a stock. You can't use that. You're stuck. That money is locked up in anticipation of your grandfather baby having a heart problem. On the other hand, you say, look, I will buy health insurance for my grandfather. I will pay the insurance company, let's say 8,000 rupees a year, every year. However, in the unlikely event if my grandfather has a heart problem, I know the insurance company will pay me 15 lakhs to make sure that the health problem is sorted. That means by just paying a small amount of money to the insurance company, I am secure and I can use my money better. My 15 lakhs are not locked up. I can do a lot more with it. The same thing works with business. The same thing works with anything else. Because people know insurance exists, they can spend their money instead of spending their money or saving their money just to make sure that some bad event doesn't happen and they have the money saved, they now are able to use that money better and spend more money investing, growing their businesses and scaling up. So insurance actually is one of the key growth drivers of the economy, even though most people don't know about it. It's actually very exciting to look at the insurance industry. The fourth area is the stockbroking industry. We all know, like, buying and selling shares. You've heard of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, who buys and sells shares in the stock market. He's earned like a few billion rupees. He's actually one of multi-billionaires just by buying and selling shares of public companies. Stockbrokers help you do that. Mutual funds, of course, as you may know, is basically instead of you sitting down and buying and selling shares with a stockbroker, you say, okay, look, there is some manager who knows the industry better than I do. I will give him my, let's say, 10 lakhs. And I tell him, okay, look, I will invest in your mutual fund. Your mutual fund will invest in stocks on my behalf, and I will just get a straight return from your mutual fund. So I don't have to decide or look at CNBC or read all the stock company balance sheet reports, because I trust the manager to invest on my behalf. Exchange for that, the manager is taking 1% commission for managing your money, because obviously nobody works for free. They're not running a charity, right? So again, I'm just running through the areas of the BFSI industry to make you aware what is out there, right? So let's talk about some of the lesser known parts of the BFSI industry. Investment banks. Now, all of you know investment banks and venture capital. All of you have heard of, let's say, Ritesh Agarwal of Oyo. He's like, he's raised $300 million from this venture capital fund or that one. Or let's say the Byju's is now worth $10 billion. You may have heard of those multi billionaires who have grown their companies. All of them have grown their companies primarily by raising money from venture capitalists. A venture capitalist says that, look, I have money and I think I want to take a bet on this guy's business. So what I will do, instead of actually giving him a loan, let's say if I give a loan of, let's say, 1 lakh, right? And I will get a fixed return if it's a loan. Let's say I will earn, let's say, 12,000 rupees on that 1 lakh every year. So even if that company does fantastically well, I will never earn more than 12,000 rupees per year on my 1 lakh loan. Other people saying, look, I actually want to take a bet. So I will say, instead of me giving him a loan of debt, I will actually invest in the stocks of his company, the equity of the company. So therefore, if the company does fantastically well, my 1 lakh could actually go to 10 lakhs or 20 lakhs or 30 lakhs, because as the company value increases, my share of the company also goes up, right? It's like a much faster version, or more, let's say, more aggressive version of investing in the stock market. Because you invest in the stock market, the stock of a public listed company goes up, you make money. If the stock goes down, you lose money, right? In venture capital, you're investing in a company that is not listed in the stock exchange. However, because it's an unlisted company, it tends to grow much faster, because a small company growing to a larger company grows much bigger than a large company going to a slightly larger company. A large company would be a listed company. A small company would be a unlisted company, right? So venture capital guys put in money in these sort of growth companies. Very exciting. You need a lot of brains to get into the venture capital industry, but people are minting money in this industry. Investment banks are basically banks. They don't lend money or let's say take money from people. What their job is to do is to basically set up the deals. So for example, there's an entrepreneur who says, look, I want to run a business, but I want to raise, let's say, $10 million in venture capital money. Now, the entrepreneur may not know who the venture capitalists are. So the investment banker says, look, I will actually help you raise that $10 million from the venture capitalists because of the network that I have. And I will take 2% or 3% of the money that you raise to raise that money for you. And the investment banker will make the entrepreneur meet the venture capitalist, go and raise money, get the money and manage the whole deal. Also, the investment bankers are the ones who are buying and selling companies for other ones. So if you've heard of Reliance buying out one company after the other, or let's say Facebook investing in Reliance, there were investment banks, JM Financial and others, who actually brokered the deal. It's not that Mukesh Ambani picked up the phone to Mark Zuckerberg and say, hey, give me money. They actually had an investment banker reaching out to Facebook investment banker and brokering the deal. So the investment bankers are the deal makers, right? So these are the guys who buy and sell. And again, a lot of names like, let's say, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs may not be names that you've heard of, but trust me, these are multi-billion-dollar companies themselves globally, and they're present in India, right? So these are the areas of the BFSI industry. But a new exciting area of the BFSI industry, aside from banks, NBFCs, insurance, stock markets, mutual funds, investment banks, and venture capital, the new area is something called fintech, financial technology companies, right? These are basically companies who use mobile technology or technology to duplicate the operations of other regular financial companies in a faster, more efficient way. To give an example, let's take Paytm. Paytm is an example of the fastest growing fintech company in India. What does Paytm do? Through Paytm, you're able to make payments to other vendors that through just a normal mobile phone payment. Paytm, like Google Pay, the same thing, Amazon Pay. This is something that you would have to normally would need a bank credit card to play in the older days, but with Paytm it's much faster and there's less charges, right? Because there's no infrastructure for Paytm, there's no physical bank where you have to pay salaries. Therefore, it's much faster and easier to make payments through Paytm and Google Pay than pay by credit card or through a normal check. I mean, check was actually the old way of making payments. Take another company called Zerodha. Zerodha is actually India's fastest growing online stockbroking firm. Most of the time, when you buy or sell stocks with a stockbroker, they will charge you a certain percentage a fee for every stock you buy and sell. So let's say, for example, if you want to sell 100 units of, let's say, Reliance, the stockbroker says, I'll sell it to you, but I will take a percentage. And if you want to buy, let's say, HDFC shares, I'll take a percentage. Zerodha says, I'm not going to charge you anything. You can buy and sell yourself on the mobile phone platform, literally, and I've got a Zerodha account, it's very easy, no cost, and basically they are buying and selling and there's no cost to me. Again, a fast growing fintech company. So fintech is actually totally pervading India, and again, it's one of the fastest growing sectors of the fast growing BFSI sector. So again, it's very exciting. A lot of the new technology companies that you see tend to be in the fintech space, right? But let me ask a question. So maybe the question to ask is that why is the BFSI sector doing so well? I mean, considering so many other sectors in India, even before COVID, frankly, the travel sector was down, the construction sector was down, hospitality sector was down. You were hearing that there were jobless people even in 2019 or 2018. Why is the BFSI sector doing so well? Let's talk about some long-term trends, because even after COVID, these trends will continue, right? The starting point is that a lot of people are not aware. I know you're focusing on these stupid news items like Sushant Singh Rajput and Riya Chakrabarti and like Arnab Goswami and stuff like that. But while you're distracted by all these silly things, what you're not realizing is that India's digitization process has become way advanced. Today, you have an Aadhaar card that you can use to give identification on a lot of financial work, a lot of government work. It's like your unique ID. A lot of majority of companies in the world, countries in the world, do not have a unique ID for their citizens. So therefore, citizens will have to keep on applying to different government departments and keep on reaffirming themselves. One Aadhaar ID in India allows you, even if you are, let's say, the poorest person, most illiterate person, to have an identity to get government benefits. So, for example, let's say at one point when the government in the earlier years, before the government, used to give out, let's say, grants or let's say donations to the poor farmers and all around India, they did not know if the money was reaching the right people because they had to go through all these middlemen who used to take their cut. So out of every 100, in fact, there's a quote by an earlier prime minister said that for out of every 100 rupees which goes to the people, and this is I'm talking about in 1990s, only 12 rupees actually reaches them at the end. 88 rupees actually goes into people's hands, into bribery or things like that. With Aadhaar, what happens is that the poor farmer is able to open an account, a zero balance account, even if he has no money. He can use the Aadhaar card to open an account in a bank and say any money that comes as a grant will go straight to my bank account, the poor guy's account. The government knows that because the bank account is verified with the Aadhaar card, the government knows that 100 rupees which is going to the poor guy will go straight to the poor guy, will not go into 10 different middlemen. So that is amazing because immediately that means all these people who are getting money from the government or earning are now able to actually have a lot more money to spend, and most of the economy grows because of people spending at the bottom end, right? Even things like, let's say, even the fact that Paytm or let's say Google Pay, all these online payment gateways are based on the fact that there's digitization. Today, you can actually go into any government portal, get your historical, your company records online. The Right to Information Act is brilliant. So a lot of stuff is now much easier to do. India has shot up into the ease of business rankings because of digitization. And we have actually gone way ahead of most other countries in the world. So that's a huge benefit for the BFSI industry. The second thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, you could only grow your company by borrowing money from a bank, right? Now, the thing is that banks tend to be very conservative. So if you say that I want to borrow, let's say my company earns, let's say 1 crore a year income, and I want to borrow, let's say 30 lakhs to grow my business. The bank says that how do I know that your company is going to actually be able to grow to 1 crore 50 next year such that my 30 lakhs is safe? So the bank will ask 101 questions and maybe more often than not would not give out the debt, give out the loan. Probably only maybe 15, 20% of eligible companies would be able to get money from banks, and therefore they would not be able to grow. NBFCs and venture capital says that, look, we don't care if the risk of lending to you is higher. We are going to give you the loan because we will charge a high rate of interest to cover that additional risk. So because NBFCs, non-banking finance companies, and venture capital funds exist, a lot of entrepreneurs who are not able to grow their businesses are now able to grow their businesses because of that easy available of capital, which banks are not giving them. So that has grown the economy and has given a lot more financing options. Third thing, so like, during our parents' time or even our time, like let's say if you wanted to buy a car, you would save for like years on end. Once you had the money to buy a car, you would go and buy a car and try to be very careful on spending money on it. You'd be very, very careful. You would pay the full amount of money. Same thing with a house. So therefore, if you did not have enough money, you would not be able to buy a car or a house or any large asset. Today, the concept of EMIs, easy monthly installments, has taken off. So anyone who gets a decent job in the country today says, okay, look, I may not have the money to pay fully for a house. I will let's say identify a house. I will take a mortgage. That means that I will take more money from the bank on this house, and I will pay easily monthly installments from my salary to pay it off. So therefore, I'm able to buy a lot more expensive things, houses, cars, technology, things based on the fact that I can pay off over a period of time. Stuff like this was not available even, let's say, 15 years ago, but now it's become very commonplace. Economy's grown. A few other things, insurance of many things. Like I said, health insurance, company insurance has now allowed a lot of money to be available in the market. See, all these things basically are allowing money to be much more easily available in the market, and the money is available for spending, for investment, for growing the economy. Without all this easy money and these new methods of giving out money, you would never be able to grow the economy. And therefore, because there's a huge demand for this money, there's a lot more BFSI companies starting growing and requiring to service these people, right? So now, based on that, we need to ask ourselves the question: is that this is the reason why the BFSI industry is growing so quickly? Because what's happened, even during COVID, for example, it doesn't mean that money stops flowing. It doesn't mean that banks stop lending, or let's say insurance companies stop insuring companies, or venture capital funds stop giving money. What has happened now is that all their operations have moved online. That means that, like, for example, let's say tomorrow, if you have a problem with your bank, you may not necessarily go to the bank branch. You would actually call up the bank, or actually email them, or actually just download the bank app and sort of interact with them. But at the other end, from the customer service side, there's always a human being interacting with you. I mean, the thing is that they talk about AI and chatbots, but most of the time, the banks need a human being to interact with their customers, right? Also, all these BFSI industries still require a human being to sell to their customers, right? So if you want to, let's say, offer, let's say, an EMI service, or let's say a debt, a corporate debt, or things like that, you cannot send a computer to sell to another human being, right? A human being means a bank employee has to sell to the other human being. Now, because these BFSI companies are growing so quickly, there's a huge shortage of qualified human beings in the market. So frankly, we've actually got a huge amount of banks today. If you go on Naukri.com, or let's say Monster and things like that, you will see majority of the open jobs, which are high salaries, would be from banks, insurance companies, BFSI industry, people who are looking for people to hire. Now, the problem is that just because the job is open doesn't mean that you qualify for the job, right? Because for every open job, there may be like 20 people applying or 100 people applying for it, all don't get the job. In fact, very often a bank will say, because we need to make sure our customer service and our customer support is so strong, the right type of person will be hired, the wrong type of person may not be hired. And again, we'll talk about that in the next webinar. But the point is that bank jobs are there, but only for the right people, right? Now, we're talking about Shahani Group and the Ask Careers platform that we have. We have been working with banks for the last 6-7 years, right? And we have almost around 24 banks in our network. For the longest time, we've been actually getting students, training them and placing them and giving them job roles. As of today, during COVID, the last 4 months, we have placed 650 students, freshers, into these banks. Why? Because we have got a system of selecting the right student. And if the student is right, we send them to the bank. If it's not the right student, we say, okay, look, you may not be the right person for this job. So therefore, thank you, but no. However, what has happened is that these students, 650 students or so, have been placed during COVID time for jobs with average salaries of 25 to 30,000 rupees a month. And this is where people are going begging for jobs of 10,000, 12,000 rupees fresh on graduation. We are able to get jobs at a double salary because we understand how the banks work, and the banks trust us for getting the right people. As of today, we have 2,500 plus open job requirements from banks like HDFC, insurance companies, we've got Deloitte, we've got Accenture. All these people, all these financial institutions are coming to us and saying, look, can you, Shahani Group, can you Ask Careers provide the right students for us? So now what is interesting, what's happened is that the number of students that we are getting in our own network who we're training and placing is not enough. The banks are saying, look, we love the quality of students that you do. We love the quality of, let's say, assessment that you do, but can you give us more? And we say, look, we can't give you more because you don't have that many. Then I had a chat with Dr. Hirandani, and I said, okay, look, why don't we, since we've got so many great colleges in the HSNC board, National College, MMK, so many others, why don't we offer the same job opportunities to our own students, right? At no cost. And the thing is that all of our operations are funded by banks. That means that we extend this open job opportunities to the students at no cost to the students, right? So we have a process that we do is that anyone who is interested in getting a job of, let's say, 25K plus in a bank will come to us, apply to us for a job. We have an employability assessment. If you pass the employability assessment, then you will get into the bank job. My point being is that there's a huge opportunity, and this is not just an opportunity for this year in COVID, but this will extend for the next couple of years as long as the BFSI industry grows, and we are the primary providers of great talent for the BFSI industry, right? So I'm going to end here, and my colleague Abdullah Manihar will talk a bit more about the process for any student who wants to apply. But understand one thing, it's very important. Just because the jobs are open, the jobs are not there for everyone. We only want the most ambitious people, the most proactive students to apply to us. I do not want a student who's going to sit back and say, let me think about it and we don't want to, frankly. If you are really interested in getting that 25,000 rupees salary a month, which could possibly go up to 1 crore salary per year, you have that pathway, you have to be proactive and make sure that you want to sign up and make sure that you're there for tomorrow's webinar, which Abdullah will tell you about. As of now, I wish you all the best. I'm sure that considering you're all National MK College students and others, I'm sure you are proactive and ambitious, but wish you all the best, and I hope we can help you find the career of your dreams. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Akhil. And before we go on to the last part, that is Abdullah, if you're okay, we could take a couple of questions from a couple of students, if that's
Sure.
okay.
Happy to do that.
So first is our BMS student, Ritu Singhal.
Right.
Ritu, can you come on?
I think she is not audible.
Audible?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Hi, Ritu.
Yes, sir. So
Hi.
my views, my question is that what are your views about what role does the CV or a resume play in interviews during such pandemic time?
Okay. See, the thing is that let me talk a bit about how recruiters think, right? Because ultimately, obviously, recruiters themselves want to find the right person. Now, one thing you need to understand is that recruiters have basically limited time to fill up hundreds of jobs, right? So, for example, most of the time when there's Deloitte or someone doing hiring, their bosses say, look, we want to hire 2,000 graduates. And the junior guy said, look, I have to make sure I can get at least 5,000, 10,000 graduates to come to interview a check before I can identify the 200, right? So therefore, the recruiter, all he has to do is say that, okay, let me look at the CV as a filtration. However, what really gets the recruiter most excited is how you perform in the interview. Because frankly, at the end of the day, is that every student, see, one thing you need to understand is that same way that you're graduating as a BCom from maybe a national college or MMK or things like that, there are lakhs of students graduating at the same time, right? With the same thing. Some may get higher marks, some get lower marks, but that's it. So the CV will just say that, okay, you've come from a decent college. So therefore they narrow it down to, let's say, the students from decent colleges. However, getting the job is based on how well you're able to impress the interviewer when you speak to them. Are you proactive? Do you communicate well? Do you look ambitious? Can you solve problems? Things like that. They will have a bunch of questions. They'll spend 5-10 minutes with you. and they'll make a decision, yes or no, to take you or not. So I would say the CV is more like the entry point to get you in. However, your ability to impress the interviewer is what will get you over the top. In fact, what we do in Shani Group is actually focus a lot on preparing the student for the interview in this case, because that is what gets you the job. Not, I mean, your CV is great, but won't be enough.
All
Thank
right.
you, sir.
Welcome.
All right. Thank you. So I think we can work on some more joint programs on really training the students and grooming them for the interview. So that's our food for thought for the next thing. And, sometimes the smallest step in the right direction ends up being the biggest step of your life. So
Right.
thank you, Dr. Akhil. And thank you
you.
very much for this association and giving us your time. But it's the way forward for us because all the students are at home and the future looks all uncertain. So thank you. Come like a ray of hope to them offering placements at this new normal. So I just want to now ask Abdullah Manihar to tell us the programs for the next 2 days.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Neha ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with the student. So let me introduce myself. My name is Abdullah Manihar. I'm the Senior Manager Corporate Connect for Ask Talent Services, which is the part of Shahani Group. I'm here to inform you about the amazing opportunity that we have scheduled for the student. Shahani Group, ATS Ask Talent Services, in collaboration with RD National College, has scheduled a customized webinar for the student on the job opportunities in BFA sector tomorrow. The details of the program would be shared by your teacher on the WhatsApp group. Let me give you a small gist about the program. The speaker for tomorrow program is Mr. Amit Sharma, who is the CEO of Shahani Group. He has 20 plus years of experience in creating successful blended learning. He has managed high value projects for United Nations, Microsoft, Deloitte, Infosys, and many Fortune 500 companies. Mr. Amit Sharma has been chosen as a representative by major banks, securities firm, fintech, and many multinational banks to run this placement drive with the various colleges that we are doing in association with RD National College at this moment. So at tomorrow webinar, we would be discussing about what are the opportunities, actual opportunities available in the BFSI sector. What are the actual skill set required, what exactly the industry is looking in the student, and how you can achieve that. And we will also discuss about the process about how to apply for this job opportunity. As Akhil sir has already shared with you the employability test, the whole process would be shared in tomorrow webinar. After the webinar, we will share a link with the student where they can go through the employability test, and then as per the result, we can offer the job opportunities for the student. So stay tuned for the tomorrow webinar. Okay, the details would be shared by your coordinators, by the teacher coordinator in the WhatsApp group to the student. And the people who are not from the RD National College, they can contact us directly, the Ask Talent Services, and the details is shared on the screen at this moment. You can take down the numbers, you can contact us directly, and we can schedule a program for you as well. So the one who looking this webinar and not part of the RD National College, it's the best opportunity for you. So I wish you all the luck. Thank you so much, Neha ma'am. Thank you so much, every faculty from the RD National College, to give us this opportunity to connect with the student. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abdullah. And a society grows when people plant trees under which they never will sit in. So if you invest in the next generation, it's going to grow and flourish. Akhil will agree with me that no webinar and no association and no program is possible without the team. So at the end, I would like to thank the Shahani Group team and our team. I'd like to begin by thanking my management for their support for all our endeavors. President Shri Kishuman Sukhani, Provost HSNC University, Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, and all the trustees, secretary of the board, my principal colleagues, and of course, my team at RD National College, beginning with our placement chairperson and vice principal, Professor Dinesh Himatsingani, examination convener, Professor Vipul Saluja, but a very special thank you to my backbone and the one who made this entire program possible. That's my placement coordinator, Ms. Manpreet Wadhwa. She has been silently working behind the scenes, a special and coordinating and seeing that everything works. A special thank you to Dr. Meghna Kothari for the wonderful video and film that she put in. Nikisha Kukreja handles all our PR. And a special thank you to all my faculty who have reached out to the students and will continue to reach out to make this collaboration and make sure that this opportunity reaches all the students. And of course, to all my teachers who have helped in putting this webinar together, because without their support, we couldn't have done it. And the most important part of this webinar, the students, because I can see on the chat, there are so many students, so many views, and we're going to make it viral. And thank you for always supporting us and coming forward for all these endeavors. A big thank you to the Shani group for their, especially to Dr. Akhil Shani for taking this initiative, visited me personally in the office and took this association together. Thank you so much, Akhil, for thinking of our students. And thank you to Abdullah Manihar and the entire team, Nikita and everybody who's involved in this team. Thank you for putting this program together. And I'm sure the next 2 days, the webinars are going to be really learning experiences. And this is only the beginning. We are going to go in to place many more students. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you.